You know what they say, don't read the comments. Well, I read the comments. Hello and welcome to Scarlett's Don't Read the Comments. Can I say comments a little bit more? I'm sure I can fit another reference to comments here. Yeah, that's it. While I was gone on my trip, I received a number of comments, and I tried to read a lot of them. I didn't get to all of them because there were quite a few. But I picked out two doozies for you today to look at some interesting thoughts. Yeah, we're going to call them interesting thoughts. Now, I like to think of these comments videos as a way to thank everybody for the liking and subscribing and all the YouTube things you do for me. Really, really is appreciated. One of my viewers asked for more pictures of my trip, so as a thank you, I'm going to show you a couple of pictures from my recent trip to Katana, Sicily. And at the end, for those of you who stick with it and listen to all the silly stuff I have to say, I have kitty pics. You know I love to share the kitty pics with you. So before we get started on the comments, here is Katana. The first picture I have for you is from the place where the Duomo is, looking down Etna Street towards Mount Etna, which is an active volcano that you can sometimes see smoking and doing all kinds of volcano things. The second is the site of the current School of Humanities of the University of Catania, which is on the site of a former monastery, which is a really, really cool building. And there you can see the hardened lava flow from 1669, which was a very important event in the city. Obviously, Etna made a big mark, literally, on the city, so it's stuff to look out for. And then the last one is the carriage that they drag the statue of St. Agatha around on her feast day. So St. Agatha was a saint that supposedly had her breasts cut off, and so there's all these images of breasts and her getting her breasts cut off, and, you know, more interesting stuff from the Catholic Church. Anyway, having said all that, let's get on with the comment. So the first one was on my obnoxious questions for atheists from this Michelangelo 830. I do like the name, that's kind of cool. Let's see what they have for us. Would you listen to me because I may know something that you don't? I am a psychologist and I escaped out of the cults of religion and atheism. Being honest, understanding God is absolutely everything. I think you need a little help on your sentence structure here, but okay, the short form is I'm apparently listening to you, so sure, you might have something to say that I don't know about. I don't know what you being a psychologist has to do with anything. Are you going to tell me something related to psychology? Spoiler, the answer is no. If God is unarguably the most important issue in all our lives, and you believe the idea of the creator of the creation is fantasy or dogma of faith that belongs to religion is because the cult deceived you manipulating the information, what other explanation could there be? Well, asking me for the explanation is a shifting of the burden of proof here, and it could be an argument from incredulity. I'm not really sure. So I guess Michelangelo escaped both atheism and religion, and I'm not quite sure how to parse the rest of this, but let's move on. Maybe this will become clearer if we read some more. Spoiler, it's still confused. The idea is God belongs to philosophy, or rational thinking, and all societies have an understanding of the intelligent creator of the creation that atheists don't believe exists. The use of the verb believe betrays the intention to make others believe that the idea of God is a dogma of faith that belongs to religion. I don't think so. I think believe just means that you either accept the proposition as true or you don't accept the proposition as true. I mean, we tend to deal with the idea of God in the realms of philosophy and religion because that's generally where these discussions fall. But there could be other ways. You could look at science. We wouldn't need to have all of these things if God just came down and cleared it up for us. But, that might be too easy. What do I know? We go on. The fact alone that humanity don't know that God is the creator of the creation should be enough to make you doubt. Is it possible to believe? It is impossible to be wrong believing. To find the truth and God only to think for oneself is necessary. I find this writing to be kind of impenetrable. I'm not really sure. Is it possible to believe? It is impossible. Clean this up a little bit, and I'm not really sure what's being asked, and my concern is that no matter how I answer, you're going to say, you didn't understand what I was saying, because let's be clear, I don't understand quite what's going on here. All these negatives, I don't know, are you asking, could we be wrong if we believe, or could we be wrong if we don't believe? And of course, we can always be wrong, and then to find the truth in God, only to think for oneself is necessary. This needs to be cleaned up, basically. Let's move on. The question, does God exist, means, does the creator of the creation exist? And doesn't mean what atheists and religious people want you to believe it means. So first of all, no. Does the creator of the creation exist is one question. To accept that the universe or our world, the earth, is a creation is begging the question. We're establishing that it is a creation, but you need to show that it is a creation. And if it is a creation, then maybe there was a creator. But there are plenty of gods out there that are not creator gods, like all the Greek gods and the Roman gods. They did not create the world or the universe, and you've got some of these in other religions as well. So these are not equal questions. I don't mind the world and the universe being called creation in a metaphorical, poetic kind of way, but you have to take it as such. These are just expressions we use. It doesn't mean we literally believe that this is a creation by an agent that is capable of creating. So this is just wrong. All right, moving on. Atheism is a logical fallacy that assumes God is the religious idea of the creator of the creation to conclude wrongly no creator exists because a particular idea of God doesn't exist. And I'm not sure what you mean by you say that atheism is a logical fallacy. Like, which one? What are you talking about? And atheism rejects all gods. Or I should say atheists don't believe in God, so atheism is the state of being without any gods. It doesn't matter if they are the creators or a particular idea. Just give us one and we'll talk about it. And you're not going to believe this last sentence here that Michelangelo finishes with. To end the war in Ukraine, the discovery that atheism is a logical fallacy has to be news. What? What does the war in Ukraine have to do with atheism or logical fallacies or frankly any of this? And I'm still unclear about this idea that this person is a psychologist and therefore we should listen. I don't know anything about that. So, that was a bunch of words we just read, and I'm really not quite sure what Michelangelo believes or why or what we're supposed to do with any of this. Is this person a Christian? Is this one of these non-denominational Christians? I don't know. None of this makes sense. But atheism is simply the rejection of your claim. So it can't really be a logical fallacy. Atheists can make logical fallacies. And I have no idea what the war on Ukraine has to do with any of this, except it's in the news and has been for a while. Well, I'll call Zelensky and see what he has to say. Let's go on to the next comment I have for you. This comment is from Just the Fishing Dude on my video, Why Do I Pick on Christianity and Give Other Religions a Pass? And it's all about prophecy. So let's read the beginning. It's pretty long, by the way. I'm going to summarize a bit of it. I would point out the Bible is able to offer testable, verifiable evidence in the form of specific, fulfilled prophecies. Let's keep that in mind. Specific, fulfilled prophecies. In fact, the Bible is about a quarter prophecy. In addition to the many, many historical examples of fulfilled prophecy, here are just a few that have happened in the past 100-ish years. All right, so fulfilled prophecy. We know where this is going, right? We've got some words in the Bible that people claim came true. And so that's therefore proof that the Bible is true and everything. And so the first thing I would say is, let's even assume that a prophecy comes true, and therefore we can establish that that part of the Bible is true. It doesn't make the other things true. You can't say, well, because this is true, all of it's true. These are all different claims that would have to be evaluated. You can't just say, well, by dint of the fact that this is right, then everything is right. It don't work that way, my man. But let's go on. Let's see what particular prophecy this person is going to talk about. All right, so this is about Israel scattered and returning to her land, and we've got a citation from Deuteronomy and then Ezekiel. And just the short version of this is that God wants to punish his people, the Israelites, because they have profaned his holy name, and he wants to teach them a lesson. That's basically it. You can read all of this, but the first thing I'm going to say is that, first of all, Deuteronomy and Ezekiel and some other books have parts that were taking place during the Babylonian captivity, or they could take the Babylonian captivity into account. So therefore, some of this scattering may not have been anything to do with this kind of post-biblical period or our common era time, but that just very mundane fact that they were used to being scattered to the four winds. And I don't know that much about the biblical scholarship on this, so I really can't speak too much to it. But what I will say is, if you read all of this, you will find out that it isn't very specific. It's just this very generic, God's mad at his people. You know, it happens a lot in the Bible, and he's going to scatter them in this particular case, and then he's going to bring them back at some point. It's all to teach them a lesson and everything. But there's nothing that says when it's supposed to happen, so it's not any kind of specific thing at all. And again, they might have already been scattered when this part was written, for all I know. You'd have to show very specific things that I don't think the text shows. Now, the next paragraph is Michelangelo telling us how amazing it is, and I'm just going to pull out these couple of things. This is quite amazing, and then they say this is unprecedented. And this particular paragraph is like, wow, isn't it amazing that God said he would scatter them and bring them back, and they would come from all over the world, and that's exactly what happened, and it hasn't happened to anybody else. Well, I don't know what it matters if it's never happened to anybody else. I don't see that as being anything important. If it's not necessarily a prophecy because it only happened to one group of people, that doesn't lend credence to this anymore. It's like an interesting fact about it, but okay, whatever. So we have God said he was going to do this, and he did it, and isn't that amazing is sort of the point of this next paragraph. Let's go on. The next paragraph involves the land being divided, and Michelangelo pulls out a couple of lines from Joel 3. And in case you don't know, Joel is a very short but batshit crazy book in the Bible that it's like I have trouble making sense over. But they pull down that the land is going to be divided up. And if you read all of Joel, there's all kinds of stuff that happens. And so I don't know how that's anything, really. And once again, if this is around the time of the Babylonian captivity, which some of it might have been, like, who cares? They might have been talking about other times that Israel was scattered to the four winds, not the modern era. So anyway, the land's going to be divided. There we go. And so I think Michelangelo is a lot more impressed with this than I am. Like, ooh, Israel is back in a part of the very same land they used to have, just as foretold, but the land has been divided as well. It's like, so what? You know, people divide up countries all the time. Every country has shifted borders and moved stuff around, and things change name, and it's just, I don't know, it's just not that interesting as a prophecy. It's like, whoa, stuff is going to be cut up, man. Awesome. But I don't see this as being anything, and again, it's not very specific. Like, he said, this person promised very specific prophecies, but it really isn't. So let's go on to the next part. And actually, this is the part that interests me the most. The country reborn in one day. And I've seen this kicking around. So this is what this person says. What's more, the Bible said Israel would be reborn as a nation in one day. We get this quote from Isaiah that goes, before she goes into labor, she gives birth. Before the pains come upon her, she delivers a son. Who has ever heard of such things? Who has ever seen things like this? Can a country be born in a day, or a nation be brought forth in a moment? Yet no sooner is Zion in labor than she gives birth to her children. This happened May 14th, 1948, when Israel declared itself to be a nation, and President Truman, along with other countries, formally acknowledged them as such. Blah, blah, blah. It goes on about the U.S. I have to say, I did go back and I read this whole chapter in Isaiah, and I don't see this as being anything about the nation being born in a day. It sounds metaphorical. It doesn't really sound like a prophecy. Even what's taken out of context here just doesn't really sound like a prophecy. I want to point out a part of Isaiah that Michelangelo didn't quote. This is just a little bit further down in that same chapter of chapter 66, and it's verse 12. For this is what the Lord says, I will extend peace to her like a river, and the wealth of nations like a flooding stream. When has Israel been at peace? Like, I will extend peace to her. That her is for Israel. Ain't no peace going on in Israel, and it hasn't been for a long time, not in my lifetime anyway. So that part of this quote-unquote prophecy didn't come true. Curious that we don't talk about that. Let's see what else we got. So returning to this, Israel was born in a day. Yet in the case of Israel, Britain's mandate over the land ended at midnight on May 14th, 1948, and Israel declared themselves to be a nation and were recognized as a nation in this one day, fulfilling the prophecy with stunning precision. You know, things like that happen. They do happen on an occasion. So I don't see this as being particularly interesting. Let's even assume that that was true, that Britain ended its mandate just like spontaneously. They woke up one day and go like, oh, what are we doing? Let's end this mandate. It really is not all that impressive. And that line from Isaiah is just, like, it's not really like very prophecy-y. It's not specific. It doesn't say anything. And he said, fulfilling the prophecy with stunning precision. It's like you're interpreting things in retrospect is what I see. I don't see there being a really good prophecy. So Michelangelo summarizes for us. Let's step back now and think about these prophecies. The Bible makes the claim that the Jewish people would be scattered throughout the entire world and return to the very land they were in as an identifiable people. To put into perspective just how bold this prophecy is it? This feat has never happened to any other people throughout the history of humankind. So what? In essence, the Bible predicted something that has never happened throughout human history would happen to a specific people long before it happened, and it came to pass exactly as foretold. You know, we've talked about this exactly. There was no real, this is going to happen and these are going to be events. It's just very vague. It's very much metaphorical language that now we're looking back and reading in retrospect. As if that wasn't enough, it foretold that this very land would be divided among the nations, which we know also happened in 1947, 1948, and beyond. Even more, it foretold that the nation of Israel would be born in one day. That happened and with stunning accuracy on May 14th, 1948. So I wanted to address this born in one day because, as it turns out, if you didn't know, there was a whole movement known as Zionism. It was an international movement that was nationalistic in nature that emerged in the 19th century, which was a couple minutes before that 1947, 1948 time. And the whole purpose of Zionism was to establish a homeland for the Jewish people, or to reestablish or to make good on God's promise if you're a Jew and that's the way your thinking goes. This is all from the Wiki in case you're interested on Zionism, and it says from 1897 to 1948, the primary goal of the Zionist movement was to establish the basis for a Jewish homeland in Palestine and thereafter to consolidate it in a unique variation of the principle of self-determination. So there were people working to make this happen. Now you might say maybe God was working through them, fine, whatever, but it's people made this come true and it took them decades. And by the way, there was also a war fought to make this happen. After World War II ended, they did fight. So here's the trick to this prophetic language. You take some kind of metaphorical language that looks like it's about events like people being scattered, people returning to their homeland, then other metaphorical language about Zion birthing in a day, and you smash all this together. These are disparate books of the Bible, and you're pulling all this stuff together. You ignore the stuff that doesn't really enter into this metaphorical language, and you say, hey, that was a prophecy, and you reach back into time and look backwards and say, hey, look, this came true. But it's not very specific. It doesn't look like what it says it looks like. It's tough to separate the things that are just poetic, just, the Bible writer having a good time, doing some metaphors and allegories and things, and people saying, like, oh, that must be literal. And it's not. This is not specific. It's not interesting. And frankly, that part of the world is a shit show and has been for a long time, and it looks like it's not going to be solved anytime soon. So, whatever. Just not convincing stuff here. But let's get to some fun stuff. Let's look at some kitty pics. We have Gina in the bathtub getting a drink. I don't know why she's obsessed with the bathtub, but she is. Got a picture of Gina and Susie Q hassling each other, and, it's one of their pastimes. It's like a hobby. And we have Alex the Chonk in the last couple of pictures. One, he's just hanging out, taking a nap, and the other, like we say, he's making some biscuits. So there you go. Here's another comments video. It's very interesting comments. The first, I'm not quite sure what they were getting at, and this last one, another attempt at prophecy. The prophecy one's like, it's interesting and everything, but this ain't no Lord of the Rings. Tolkien was a much better writer than whoever was doing the Bible stuff. So there you go, and hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, you can like, subscribe, and do all the YouTube stuff. You know I love it when you do all the YouTube stuff, so do it. Go down there, give a comment. What do you think? What do you think that first guy was on about? I would love to know. And if you like what I do, you can buy me a coffee. Link is in the description below. I'm cooking up another Christian freedom video. You know you love it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.